I'm back basically to the possibility of, we will now give 2 demos, and I would ask Matteo, maybe you can go first to give a little bit of information on the open access compliance module.
Sure. So, hello everybody. I'm Matteo. If you don't know me, I'm lead developer at Core, and I'm gonna give you a quick demo of what we done, the work that we done on the open access compliance. And as a developer, is one of these. Can you see my screen? Yes, it's all okay. So, as a developer, from the developer team, is one of the things that like he has a lot of things under the hood that are not visible. So having me 5 minutes where I can present it to you and show you how cool what we done here is, it's really a great opportunity. So the open access compliance tab starts as start from what it was the ref tab that we had in the past, where for ref 2021 we created a tab for helping repositories in the UK to navigate what was ref. So if you are from the UK, I'm really sorry to bring back these bad memories. And if you're not from the UK, just a quick explanation. There's a policy, open access policy in the UK that runs as many requirements that are usually pretty stressful for repositories to navigate. What we did at Core was a dashboard tab that could help people navigate and also add additional tools that could help in improving the experience and trying to make it a bit more smoother. So one of the major things that we could control and help with in Core was controlling the distance. So one of the requirements is that a paper that is published needs to be deposited into a repository less than 90 days from the publication date to be compliant with this funder policy of the UK. So what we can do in Core is, of course, as you can see on my screen, you can show how many of these papers we can recognize as core, as compliant. This means that we can display this to the repositories, but also this meant that UKRI, like the institute, the research that kind of runs REF and Research England, I think, they kind of got in touch with us and asked us, okay, what do you see? And we help them running a bit of an audit on understanding how this works. So this kind of information that could help to have a first level, like high level, but also big data level, scalable level to check. So what we done from this is that we took it and we said, okay, can we make this something that could be helpful globally? And so we created this tab that we call Open Access Compliance tab, where we start from REF, and that's what you see here mostly is the information that we had from the REF compliance. The next round of REF is starting, should be finishing in 2029. So hopefully this time we are more prepared and everybody has, the data is better, the metadata is better, and everybody will have an easier life to run it. But we have now a place where we can start now to look at it and understanding together. But also we want to make this a place where we can help navigate all the other funder compliance policies that are around. I'm aware, for example, of Plan S. I think there's one from the Department of Energy, I think in US. They all have parts of their policies that require certain level of open access compliance. That is about presence of certain type of metadata, presence of licenses, all of these kind of things that the repositories already have and they already know. But with Core, you can see a bit better what's happening there. And you can also see, validate that what you're doing is actually makes sense. And you can see it from a bigger scale. So you can have a overview view that most of the time is actually pretty useful to spot then if you have systematic problems that you need to address. So there are two major things here that you can do. One is validating your data, but also the other one that is really cool is that thanks to our deduplication system, you can also cross-check. So you can also find papers that are representing instances of the same paper that you have in your repository, but they are existing somewhere else. And maybe these papers have compliance metadata. They have some certain things that could be interesting that maybe you don't have in your records in your system. So what we're trying to do, we're trying to embed these things and try to use them as a logic on many different aspects. So what you see here mostly are things that are kind of ref related. So we have, the compliant here at the moment, it means about the 90 days I was saying before. But there is also this cross repository that goes picking other papers from all the other repositories to find if they are compliant. But we can also do things like validating if the publication dates in the repositories are also the same dates that are available, for example, from Crossref, from an external source. So we have all of these components, and now we created them in a modular way, so that what we would like to do, and also where I'm coming to ask for your help, is we would like to create then different views of this tab based on different funded compliance policies. So you can customize it. We're building a system where you can customize it yourself, so you can run something directly on yours. But also, we are trying to work out what are these compliance policies for the different funders that allow this. For example, Plan S is the most common. Like they have one of the requirements, I think, is about DOIs and having like identifiers. This could easily be made visible in a compliance tab, and it could help you in navigating this kind of information. So that's more or less an overview of this. All of this is usually downloadable, and you can always like check how your system is doing, and also like improve it. That's more or less the plan. So yes, more or less this is the demo. You can go ahead, Peter.
Thank you so much, Matteo. Maybe just to mention then this, this open access compliance module is something that helps institutions to see how they are doing basically with respect to a particular open access compliance, and then they can dig in and dive into specific articles to see how what happens. And effectively, the idea is if you want to become more compliant, then you need to have a place to monitor compliance. What I'm here for is to show you another module, which is a newly introduced module to the core dashboard. This is a module which responds to the need which some institutions mentioned to us, which is related to the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. So a number of institutions told us that basically it is important for them to be able to communicate what their institution is doing, or it is important for their institutions to be able to communicate what they are doing with respect to specific sustainable development goals. For instance, have we done specific things in the last year, and who are the key people at our institution who are actually doing something in those spaces? So we have created a machine learning based model for automatically labeling papers in your repository against United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. You can what I'm showing here basically is just all the papers that received at least one label. So the model is multi-label because some papers can effectively respond to more than one SDG. You can see that the profile, I'm showing this for the Open University, you can see that the profile of my institution is that we are doing at the Open University a lot of research on quality education, with response to quality education, and then we are doing also a lot of stuff with respect to partnerships for the goals, and then good health and well-being. So these are the key areas. You can see how we are doing also with respect to specific years. So I can, for instance, click on quality education. You can see how many papers I have in those categories, and you can compare it with, I don't know, clean water, for instance, which in our institution we have a lot fewer basically. You can then go to the list below, and you can, for instance, see specifically the articles, and you can see that the articles always get labels, and sometimes the labeling doesn't have to be we effectively assign confidence rate to the labeling, so you can see that how confident we are about specific labels. Then these articles can be, for instance, opened in core, or they can be opened in the repository basically. So here I have two options how to open it. By the way, the opening of the article in your repository works if your OAI resolver is set up correctly. So where it's set up correctly, then it will be able, core is always able to link the paper directly to your repository landing page. So that's about the SDG module. For those of you who are interested, we're thinking about running a webinar specifically on this module, how it works, and how it can be useful for the people at your institution. That's all from me at this point. And so I'm going to switch back to the presentation. Yes, sorry, apologies. I've lost it here. Okay. And then I think we have the time for the survey. So with that, I'd like to hand over to David. Right?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Thanks, Petter. To answer that question that Louise has just put in the dashboard, Catherine will be in touch with you immediately following this meeting to make sure, and this is relevant for everybody, if you or someone at your institution doesn't have access to the core dashboard and you want access to the core dashboard, please do just drop us an email at theteam@core.adc.uk. That will come straight through to us and we'll make sure your institution has the accounts that they need. If we can go to the survey slide, please, Petter.
David, do you see the survey slide?
We're not seeing the presentation.
Okay.
We're still on your main screen. No worries.
Apologies. I thought I was sharing it correctly. So in that case, okay. Do you see it correctly now?
There we go. Fantastic. This is one of the things that basically myself and Mo have been running, and we run every time before we do the board of supporters. This is effectively what you tell us is important and you'd like us to be working on. And there's an interesting thing here that we noticed earlier in the week with these results is the fact that the fact that something is at the bottom of the list doesn't necessarily mean that it's not important to you folks. One of the things that Petter has just been demonstrating is the identification of UN SDGs. And in fact, you told us it was far less important. And one of the reasons it's far less important to you now is because now we have the tools to enable you to do the UN SDGs. There are other things for, down there, for example, the decentralized persistent identifiers, which are your OAI IDs. And if you have your OAI resolver set up, you can have your own OAI IDs. And if this doesn't make any sense to you or you want more information on what OAI IDs are and what the OAI resolver is, I've got some more information coming back. If we jump to the top, what is the most important things to our members that you want us to focus on? And as Matteo's we put a lot of work into the OA compliance and expanding it beyond being just relevant to our UK members. We want it to be a global service that can adjust for a range of different applications. And Matteo also touched briefly on about how because we are sort of a hub and we reflect the content we index the content for the repositories, we know about content across repositories. And this is how we can do the cross repository checks. Another module that we have that is based on this is the versions and duplicates. And this allows you through your core dashboard console to manage how we are seeing and how we're dealing with versions of content that might be the same paper, it might not be the same paper. And this allows you to manage it from the core dashboard. The solid, I'm not going to touch on the whitelist for AI bots because that's clearly important to a lot of institutions. And breaking down what you told us in the survey was either it was important and we were doing something about it, or it was important and we didn't have the resources to do something about it. And this is something that Petter's actually going to speak to shortly, so I'll let Petter come in on that. The mainstay of core and what we want to do in core is increasing the reach globally of open access content and making it available and useful to as many people as possible. And that includes enhancing the discoverability of your repositories, checking that metadata is correct, checking that we are a comprehensive reflection of the content that you guys host. And this comes down to the DOIs, the ORCIDs, which Petter mentioned briefly, the metadata enrichment, making sure your repository is fair, findable, accessible, interoperable, bugger, reproducible, reliable. There we go. And overall, we rely on the results of the survey for you guys to tell us what's important for us to work on. And also, how you want us to work on and how you want to feed back to us. Petter, next slide, please.
So I just wanted to add a few things. So when we look at the first 5, then of course this will prompt us to do more work on open access compliance and do more work on versions and duplicates. We will aim to improve these existing modules. For the AI bots, it will mean that we will work towards building something new and working with the community on agreeing how that new thing, for instance, this whitelist for AI bots, should actually be built. It will, at this point, be in the design stage because we don't know yet how exactly this needs to be built and managed. For the core comprehensiveness, this is very clear. This is a very clear steer for us that we need to work towards this, that this is important to you. And I personally believe that there should be no DOI that core doesn't know about, basically. And so, for us, this will become an absolute priority. And for the metadata validation and fair compliance, we have some plans about how this can be done, how repositories, what it means. We already had some discussions about what it means for a repository to be fair, because of course, understanding what it means is necessary in order for us to be able to provide advice to repositories on how to meet that fair requirement. So we will be building some support basically along these lines, and we will be engaging with you as the community to advise us on how to do it. So we want to co-develop it. So with that, David, I'm handing back to you.
Perfect. Thank you, Petter. And this here is what you told us is how you like us to work and how you want us to see it. And as Petter's just mentioned, we have an upcoming webinar for the AI bots and the whitelisting ideas for AI bots. We've had a couple of focus groups around the work that's going around the rights retention strategies. And Pavlo de Castro from Strathclyde is actually going to talk about that shortly. So we have a planned series of webinars, and Mo will be in touch with you about those. You also want to hear about case studies and best practices. Now, on the core website, there are a series of use cases that we've already undertaken with some of the members, and we intend to continue building this because these become valuable resources for us as well. Let's be honest here, because if we can show how you guys can best use core services, this works for you and it works for us. We do offer one-on-one support and repository health checks as well to help keep your repository in tip-top condition. And in that regard, one of the things that came out of the survey and came out of the survey last time is we put considerable time into developing. The next slide, please, Petter. No, not the next slide, but what's on the next slide, which is the data providers guide. And this is it's not a lightweight coffee read. Please again do scan the code, and if you want to link to the documentation, we can put this straight in the chat as well. This is the overriding guide for how a repository can be best configured to make sure that your content is exposed in a way that can be read and can be indexed by core. And this is a critical thing, because we've done a lot of work. We find misconfigured repositories and repositories where the software isn't quite set up correctly. We can help with this, and a lot of this information is given in this data providers guide. One of the things
can I just interject one thing?
Of course,
I think
yes.
This is a nice story which fits this thing. So we've been working for the last 1.5 years with the US Repositories Network, and there we have done a pilot basically, which was sponsored by the Confederation of Open Access Repositories and Spark. And I know that some members from this network will actually be here at this meeting. And one particularly nice output actually from this collaboration was that we realized that institutions were not necessarily aware of what it means, and how core operates and what core needs as a provision, or any aggregator, in fact, what it needs to be able to gather the data in an appropriate way. By working with this network, we managed to do certain interventions. Most of these interventions were conducted on the basis of checking that the OAI PMH endpoint of the repository remains functional, operational, and delivers good metadata. And by doing these interventions, which were always very lightweight, we managed to increase the content that was possible to discover, well, we call it discoverable content, from these repositories by 50%. So it has been a really great success with relatively little effort. And then therefore we believe that, raising awareness to what needs to be done, but also providing certain monitoring tools so that repositories actually, so that, the two repositories can notice things when they go wrong rather than having to chase them at a particular time is something that can help. David, back to you, please.
Perfect. Thank you, Peter. And on that note, there's one of the things that being correctly configured for core and the OAI PMH endpoint being configured is one. I've been with core, 9 years now. And one of the things I used to hear quite a lot, and we don't hear as much, is where those with dashboard accounts say, but the numbers in the dashboard don't reflect the numbers that I actually think are in my repository. And core reflects the numbers that are seen by the outside world. And it's not just core that uses this. If you're in the UK, for example, Iris UK will use the same data that core does to monitor your downloads and count your downloads. So making sure you're set up correctly is critically important. Now, we're also aware, painfully aware, that many of the repositories and repository managers we work with on a daily basis work with very small teams who are extremely resource limited. So making it as simple and as straightforward to do things that are effective for your repository really is part of our mantra. And on that note, thank you, Peter, for the next slide. Here is another set of documentation that will that can guide you to get the best out of the tools that core can offer you to help you in your membership. And that includes OAI identifiers, using the dashboard, the additional plugins like the recommender plugin we can offer you for your repository as well. Have a look through the documentation. Please do read it. And if it brings up questions, great. Get in touch with us. We're more than happy to talk to any of the members and help in any way we can. And I think that's me wrapping up with this slide.
Thank you so much, David. So I think we are off to the next section, current challenges and opportunities. And I think I would like to bring at this point Pablo as an external host.
Yep. Hi, everyone. Thank you, David. Thank you, Peter, for the opportunity to report on these kind of early discussions some universities in this board of supporters are having on the opportunities to monitor the collective uptake of institutional rights retention policies. Please, next slide. So this is going to be a brief overview of what the discussion has been so far, and at the end, some input will be requested from all of you in the call. So the what on monitoring the uptake of IRRPs is that at the moment, we have a good insights into the number of policies being adopted by UK universities, thanks to this kind of file that Stephen Eaglin at Cambridge is maintaining. We know that there's roughly 40 plus universities in the UK that have passed their IRRPs. However, next please, Peter, we have no estimation on on the outcome of such policies. That is how many rights retention publications we have already in our systems. This is mostly because we haven't got a clear mechanism to identify those publications. I'll come back to that in a second. In terms of what this monitoring effort would be for, in the first place is to reward the effort that all universities are doing in terms of capturing those accepted author manuscripts and making them available quickly upon first online release. We would need them to be more visible. Next, please. The visibility that we gain through monitoring this uptake will help persuade researchers that this is a worthwhile OAI implementation route. So at the moment, there is some difficulty in persuading academics that rights retention is a good way forward. When they see how many publications there are available out there that have applied rights retention, it will be easier to persuade them. This will be particularly the case where read and publish deals do not apply or are dropped, as it's happening. as we speak. Now, each institution, each university can easily monitor its own number of rights attention publications, because we know, each of us knows how many of them we're making available from our universities, but we cannot know what other HAIs are doing, because we have traditionally relied on the 2 lines rights attention statement, and this is what the rights attention module in core relies on. So text mining manuscripts for the 2-line rights attention statements. Now, institutional rights attention policy as a rule will not require those 2-line rights attention statements. Therefore, trying to mine those texts will not be a reliable mechanism to identify rights attention publications. Finally, this estimation of the growth in the number of rights attention publications will very much help new universities trying to pass their own IRPs. We've seen we have 40, 41, 42 universities having passed their policies. Many others are in the process of doing so. If they're able to see how successful the implementation of those policies is being at the universities that are already running it, it will be much easier for open access advocates and repository managers to persuade their management that this is a worthwhile development for them. Next, please. In terms of the how, which is the critical bit in this presentation, this is what the discussion has mostly focused on so far. The easiest way to allow core to identify rights attention publications would be to define a metadata element, a specific metadata element, and ideally a set code to mark rights attention publications from repositories in a way that allows external aggregators to spot them. That is core. Next, please. However, while all of us or most of us would be happy for core to be able to track these rights attention publications through the specific metadata element, very few of us, if any, would like other actors to be able to identify those publications. And by other actors, of course, I mean the publishers. So as an alternative, institutions could also share, safely share lists of their rights attention publications through, for instance, DOIs with core as a national level aggregator. This model is happening already in Germany for the Open APC, where both institutions and consortia send them, in Bielefeld, they send them lists of DOIs where an APC has been paid and how much has been paid. And this allows the aggregator, in this case an international one, to collect reliable statistics on APC payments. It's a little bit more difficult. Next, please. But it could also be an option if we wanted to be completely safe in terms of sharing the information with an external actor. These early discussions that I am reporting on are being held through core with a number of kind of early adopter universities. I will show you a couple of examples sorry, not yet. Can you please go back for a second? So the aim is to try and identify a pilot mechanism for this information to be shared, namely what publications in our repositories are have been made available through the rights attention route. And I'm going to show you next, please, Peter, a couple of examples on this for the how this information is currently being shared. This is from the Apollo repository at Cambridge. This is a DSpace-based repository. You can see there that there's a specific metadata element, albeit an internal metadata element. This is not your standard Dublin core, where some sort of code is being used by the repository team at Cambridge to tag rights attention publications. This is not being done systematically, but it's a possibility. If we figure out some mechanism to do this kind of across the board, this is the sort of thing that would allow core to capture these items very easily. And then there's another example, next please, from Sheffield Uni. They use, of course, the White Rose, the kind of collective repository. And this is the way they tag their rights attention publications. So there is a corporate. I haven't checked what metadata element this is in, what Dublin Core metadata element this is tagged into, but you can see there that there is a clear statement on the metadata record that this accepted manuscript has been made available immediately, so immediate green open access, relying on the University of Sheffield research publications and copyright policy. This is not as kind of clear-cut as a mechanism as the one we've seen for Cambridge, because you would need this to be machine readable, but it's probably doable as well as a mechanism. So this is it from me. I'm not sure if the Menti questions are still in the next slides, or probably not. Yes, they are. So I had these kind of 3 questions for all of you in the call today. David, can you carry on yourself? They are on the Menti already?
They've just been added to the Menti, and we've discussed it with Mo, and we're going to take these as a block of questions in the discussion section coming up when we finish with the presentations. And everybody, please do read the questions here from Pablo, because genuinely we're interested in your feedback on these 3 questions. So we'll ask those in a block when we come to the discussion at the end. Thanks very much, Pablo, for your presentation, and thanks for coming along today and sharing what you've been doing with yourself and other core members. And Petter, with that, I think it's back to you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Pablo. We really appreciate it, because what we would like to do is to build something that is useful for the community here. And for instance, it could be that there are multiple routes, as Pablo mentioned. One route for the monitoring is via the metadata route, as for instance demonstrated on the Cambridge example. Another route might be that, for instance, these lists could be just uploaded to the core dashboard, basically, and then shared without exposing them further to any publishers. That could be another option. So we are, maybe there are other options that I have not mentioned, but definitely we are interested in further engaging with the community and building something useful. Okay, and this is basically, I just wanted to open up with something that Core is actually currently engaging in. We have heard from many of you that basically actually, let me start with the survey. That might be a very good start into it. As part of the survey, we asked you some questions, basically, which the first one was whether your institution encountered instances where AI-powered tools or bots have accessed your repository content in unexpected or concerning ways, specifically meaning, for instance, excessive scraping or very large-scale downloading, or perhaps some use without attribution. And we were, I don't know, alarmed or concerned that yes, many of you have observed basically this sort of excessive behavior. We believe, and we have heard from many other repositories, that this excessive behavior has, of course, or seems to be the result of the sort of AI, I don't want to call it bubble, but AI revolution basically that happened 2 years ago, and we are seeing more and more increases. Of course, open access content is incredibly valuable content for AI bots, because open access content is open access research content is relatively trustworthy content compared to everything else that people find on the web. And in addition, it's content with mostly content without copyright, with open access licenses. So it's not surprising why this content is valuable for these AI bots. The question is, how can this be done, and how can this be managed in a way that is sustainable for the libraries and repositories infrastructures? So this is the result of the survey. We also, many of you mentioned to us that half of you mentioned that you monitor bot activity and you have some rate limiting behavior, so that it doesn't surprise us. This seems like a very good method. Of course, it's very difficult to distinguish the good bots from the malicious bots, basically, and perhaps this is why we are here to sort of build something that could help you with doing that in a more effective way. But what we see as something that I would say would be also concerning, this is something that we wouldn't like to see perhaps, but we would understand why this might need to happen, is institutions effectively closing down completely access to AI bots, effectively only offering, let's say, Google to access the content. We think that we understand why institutions might be forced to go in that direction, but we also feel that that would be very problematic because effectively bots will be needed in the future more and more for machine access to content will be needed for effectively advancing the scholarly mission. With lots there will be, it would become effectively if only Google can access open access content, then this creates a barrier basically for other entrants in this space, and we think that that would be wrong basically. So we want to see we want to find a way that helps institutions to continue providing machine access to everyone while actually preserving the reliability of their systems. We are engaging heavily on this, and I would say we are leading the efforts in this space together with the Confederation of Open Access Repositories. We are putting together a panel. We are going to have a panel at the Confederation of Open Access Repositories annual meeting where we will be speaking, where I will be speaking. There will be also Paul Walk. Many of you might know him, and there will also be for the Confederation of Open Access Repositories, and there will also be Lautaro Matas from the La Referencia, and we're trying to discuss what might be good actions in this space. And in addition to that, CORE has proposed a panel at Open Repositories specifically addressing this issue. We're talking also to key people who are creators of protocols such as Herbert van den Sompel, and on how this could be well managed, and we will continue updating the community. We're also happy to discuss here within the discussion about whether you have some ideas about certain things that could be done basically. I have highlighted some of those basically, such as the whitelist, but there are many more things that could be done, I think, in this space. So yeah, I think with that, I don't know, this is probably not my slide. Can I hand back over to Mo? I think, is this you, Mo?
No, that's David's
okay,
slide.
then it's David. Okay, David,
My apologies, we had our wrong names on the slide there. So look, thank you, Peter, for that. And clearly the AI bots is a really hot topic, shall we say. We've got a few questions in the Menti discussion. So that's genuinely a very, very lightning fast overview of everything that's going on at CORE. We have grown the team significantly over the last year. We have Catherine and we have Mo, and we have some new developers with us who are working with Matteo on keeping developing the stuff that we want to do. And as it says here, we're actively working with the likes of Agostina at Cambridge, who is working with DSpace. One thing we haven't spoken today about is improvements in the metadata standards that are coming in terms of REOX 3 and the direct integration of REOX 3 with the DSpace software, which is a great leap forward. And this is one area that we do want CORE to be working on. So with that, I will hand over for Mo for the discussion. As I say, we've got a couple of questions in the chat already. If you have any burning questions, please do just put your hand up, put them in the chat. Mo, I'll hand over to you and we'll go from there.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, David. I'll get the conversation going. I think the first place to start will definitely be with the conversations around the RRS. The first question that we have is that, do you think, and I think this is for the community at large, do you think that trying to monitor the collective uptake of IRRPS is a good idea? And if anybody has a suggestion for that.
But I wonder, this might be a good question for Pablo.
Sure, maybe let's hand it over to Pablo.
Yeah, I think this is on the Menti at the moment, or so this is a question for attendees to reply yes, no, don't know, so we can see how
okay,
much.
sorry, this was your question. Apologies.
Yes, that's my question. Yes, not for me, but for the others.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Apologies.
Yes.
Okay. In that case, we've got a Soren. I think maybe you've got your hand up. Do you perhaps want to give a response regarding that? You can unmute. Welcome.
Hello. I actually don't want to give a response. I have another question.
Perfect. Go for it. I guess we'll just note that question as well while we go. Go ahead. You're more than welcome.
Yeah, no, first of all, thank you very much for the great work with Core, Peter and the team. So we are really use Core a lot for our services, and we are very excited about it. So thanks for that. One thing which is quite important for us is, for example, managing the quality of the data set in terms of, on the one hand, duplicates, which you mentioned already, which one priority, but also having good metadata. We, on the other hand, understand there are also other initiatives, for example, OpenAlex, and they have a bit more the focus on the metadata, right? So as I understand, the focus of Core is more providing access to the open access documents, the full text. And this is a little bit the question: how do you see the relationship of Core maybe with OpenAlex? And how can we improve step by step the metadata in such a way? For example, what we also notice sometimes are we would like to distinguish peer-reviewed material, for example, from non-peer-reviewed, or also research data or presentations from more formal publications. And these kind of things are quite important for us. And that would be interesting to get your vision on how this can be achieved and how you see yourself maybe also in the relationship with OpenAlex. Thank you very much.
This is a great question. Thank you, Saren. So indeed, metadata are incredibly important to us, and we have at the moment working streams to continue improving the metadata effectively through harmonization. I just want to mention a couple of activities that we are working on that go in that direction. The first activity is that we are improving the Core API documentation, trying to make it more transparent. At the moment, the harmonization processes to metadata, making them more transparent. So making it clearer to consumers, basically users of the API, how the specific metadata fields that we gather through indexing content from repositories, how it's harmonized and how it's basically brought to you, what it means basically. So that's first activity. Additional to activities which are very much requested, that I have seen a lot requested from many institutions and organizations, was to add affiliation data and especially subject information into Core. So we have in fact actually multiple streams on this, but affiliation data and subjects, we expect to be bringing them into Core probably in this academic year, in this year, apology, it's calendar year, I mean. So we are actively already working on this. We hear that affiliation data are very important, also from the perspective that there are certain modules that we mentioned to the community in the past. For instance, the fresh finds modules. Like if we want to be able to alert institutions that they have something, that there are some materials that their academics produced and they don't have in their repository, then we need to have affiliation data. That affiliation data are actually very sparse, even in OpenAlex at the moment. And so we want to be bringing that. Subjects are another method. Now, the relationship between OpenAlex and Core. So OpenAlex takes as a primary pivot of data everything that is in Crossref effectively. So you will have effectively all content that has a persistent identifier will have some sort of a existence basically within OpenAlex. Core doesn't work only like that. We have two sources of information. So one source is of course Crossref, and in the past we were in a situation that not all DOIs were part of Core. Now we have covered this, but basically we primarily gather content from repositories, and in repositories there's actually, despite the fact that many people don't know it, there's a lot of content that doesn't have a DOI basically. So we don't necessarily represent with OpenAlex exactly the same content. So very often, for instance, theses, specific document like open access books, many of these art items will effectively not exist within that collection. And of course, you mentioned Saren, correctly, that there are also some other focuses. Basically, one is more on the bibliography and metadata, and course focus a little bit more on towards the full text. But what I see in the future is that I think both of these will come closer together. I think we will be probably more closer together, but we will preserve in core the fact that we are here for the repositories community. We are here for the data providers. We want to create the things in a way that speaks and responds to the needs of the data providers. Whereas OpenAlex is, of course, a commercial company that is, sponsored by Arcadia, basically, and so they are in a slightly different situation in this respect.
I thought OpenAlex is also pretty open and not just a commercial endeavor.
It is a not-for-profit. It is a not-for-profit commercial organization.
Okay, I think, Soren, I hope you've been answered. If there are any other questions, please, just to remind the community as well that if you aren't yet signed up to our mailing list, it really is. You can reach out to Catherine as well. She will post her email address in the chat, so that you can just reach out and we can make sure that all important information that we distribute within CORE that you're able to reach. Thank you very much for that, Petar, for that response. I think I'm going to go back and try and see. Petar, are you trying to say something? Or are you okay? All right, that's fine. I'm going to go to the next question around RRS because I really haven't received the first answer. This is again to the community. Do you think that you might be able to periodically supply lists of your institutional RR publications to CORE if that was agreed, if that was the agreed mechanism, for information sharing? How many of us in the audience would be able to periodically supply those lists, do you think? Any answers? Any takers from the audience? Yes, David, you've got your hand up.
It's a cheat because it's me coming in at this point. I say, most people in the audience won't be aware to the depth of the discussions that we've had this with the working group that we've had. Pablo, could I ask you to come back in for just a second? Could you give a 2-minute sort of synopsis of how you saw this sort of centralized repository for the lists of papers with RRS statements? What was your vision for this?
Yeah, so thanks. Let me briefly say there's another question there asking whether we might be able to measure the impact of institutional rights retention policies by measuring the increases in green open access. To me, this question gets a clear no as an answer, because what matters about rights retention publications is that they are embargo free, not that they are green. Green they're going to be in any case. There were different mechanisms discussed. I mentioned the kind of open APC style exchange with CORE. There was a discussion on whether it could make sense, same as OpenAPC collects information on publications for which an APC has been paid, whether it could make sense for CORE to collect a portal for rights retention publications. Because one of the things we need to persuade our researchers about is that these routes will also increase the visibility for their publications. Even if they don't have Gold Open Access available, because there is no read and publish agreement anymore. Many universities in the UK are dropping their read and publish agreements due to economic considerations mostly. So we would need to persuade them that these immediate green manuscripts will still receive the visibility that they deserve. And one way of doing this would be to build a portal where all these publications are contained without providing any info on where they are actually hosted in terms of repositories. And this could be done, as Petar said earlier, by uploading some kind of list on the dashboard, on the CORE dashboard, or it could be done by sharing, same as the workflow for OpenAPC works, sharing lists of publications via DOIs, so identified via DOIs, identified via repository IDs for each of the institutional repositories providing this information. So there are kind of different mechanisms under discussion at the moment. The idea was to try and run these questions as a Menti, so that people would be able to answer yes, no, I don't know, to these 3 questions that were on my last slide. But I don't know, David, if this may be feasible or otherwise, because all the questions are now sitting on the Menti dashboard, meaning that it's very difficult to provide an answer to a specific question among the 6 that I saw earlier on the dashboard. Thanks.
I understand. If I could just add one thing to what Pablo's saying, then what I'll do is I'll actually put the questions in a Menti in a different format, so we can actually we can ask people to vote on it if people don't want to speak publicly about it. Excuse me. And I genuinely please any of the repository managers in the audience, we'd love to hear your feedback on this. One of the things that came out of the working group is this, which surprised me, maybe my naivety, was this slight reticence for including rights retention statements actually within the manuscripts themselves because of potential pushback from publishers. There has not been any pushback from publishers yet, but people were sort of guarding their loins to make sure they weren't setting themselves up for anything in the future. And I genuinely love to hear from anyone in the audience about their opinions around that. So first, I think Michelle wanted to be first. The first hand, Jackie, would you like to come in?
Hi, David, and hi, Pablo. Yeah, I would just say on that point you've just made about no pushback. I suspect this is because you don't actually see any outcome of pushback. It's not a public pushback, but we do see quite regularly authors express concern, or they've actually passed on an email to us saying that if they leave the statement in a manuscript, then they will actually either be required to pay for Gold Open Access or their article will be rejected. So there is definitely pushback, but it happens under the hood, at a point that's before publication. And that's largely why we've changed our policy, so that we are now clearly stating that it's the intimation to publishers that allows it to stand, and the statement doesn't therefore need to be contained. They can still put it in an article, but it doesn't need to be there, because we have definitely seen that pushback.
Fantastic. Thank you for your response there. Petter, did you want to come in on that?
I would like to. I definitely have a comment on this, but I wanted to make Michelle, if she wanted to speak. I had a feeling that Michelle O'Hara wanted to speak, but I might be wrong, basically. So I don't know. We can't hear you, Michelle.
Sorry, mute. God, you think I'd be used to that by now. Yeah, no, I have been going to speak on another point, actually, not so much this. Although I will add, I do agree with Jacqueline. I am aware of pushback against rights retention from publishers towards authors. So I don't necessarily agree that there hasn't been any.
But maybe Michelle, maybe you can then. Yeah.
Sure. I mean, I was just going to sort of say more generally, I do still think it is quite a good idea in some way to monitor it. It would just be a case of looking at how you monitor it. I know, sort of, for example, at Glasgow, we'd certainly have the will to do it, and we would have the will to sort of supply you with information about publications that have got rights retention on them. I think we have like a checkbox on Enlightened, which would probably let us produce lists of things to send you. So that might be another way of doing it at repository level rather than necessarily within the actual article itself.
Thank you so much. This is really helpful. I have a little bit of a question for us, I think, for all of us as a community. I wonder to what extent and whether any repositories in our community have experienced a situation where publishers effectively would come to you and they would basically say that you need to take down certain content basically that you have in your repository, for instance, because it is a version of record basically in that repository. And that content would actually be subject to your institutional rights retention policy. So effectively, you would believe that you don't want to take down that content because you believe that it satisfies all the rules. Has that ever happened, and has that ever been tested? Or does anyone have experience of actually facing this kind of a challenge, or maybe the publishers never don't go in that direction, or I don't know. Pablo.
Yeah, I think it's really early days. Same as we are only starting to build a community approach to monitoring, very early days. Publishers are still finding their feet, so to speak, in how to fight back. So they can fight back through their authors, which is essentially what Jackie and Michelle were raising. Fighting against institutions is a different beast, effectively. So I don't think anyone has yet received any takedown notice about this, but this is also because we're not advertising these publications. We're not showcasing them, we're not tweeting them, we're kind of doing it very stealthily. But this kind of defeats the purpose of rights retention, which is giving exposure. So what's the point of releasing embargo-free AAMs versus releasing 12-month embargo AAMs if you're not going to make any effort to make them more visible? Thank you.
Okay, Pablo, you still have your hand up. It must be an old hand now.
Yeah, it's coming down. Sorry, it takes a wee while. So.
It's all right. We've got one other question, and I think, Peter, this one is directed to you. It's generally not around the RRS, but it says that, are there any plans for you to work with Ex Libris about them indexing core? And that could be to anyone, Matteo or Peter. I think maybe you might have an answer for that.
So I don't have an answer to that, apart from saying that there was a discussion about this with Ex Libris some time ago, and it didn't happen in the end, basically. But I would be very happy to test, and see if maybe the situation has changed and maybe there might be a new opportunity. So in the past, basically, the situation was somewhat complicated because I think Ex Libris wanted to basically index all of our data, and I think there were some repositories that were sort of interested in that, but they were sort of not particularly willing to collaborate with us on making it happen. I'd like to hear how this would benefit this community. I think that would be really helpful to me to understand, what would be the direct benefit for you if this was to happen, and whether there are any mechanisms through which we could maybe restart the conversation.
Okay, I have no idea who asked that question. It was on Menti, but to the individual that did send that question, please feel free to answer that to Peter, if maybe you do have an answer. Any takers? There we go. Sally, over to you.
It was me that asked the question. I'm from the University of Leeds, so I'm here representing White Rose repositories. So it's just a question that we've revisited again, that we think it would be beneficial if Ex Libris could index core just for our users who are using our Primo systems to be able to see the content that is available via core through our own systems. So we're aware that it was looked at a while back, and we were just wondering whether it could be revisited to see whether this was something look at again.
I'm very happy for us to revisit it, but I think it would be ideal if this got a push basically from the community, because my understanding when we discussed this last time with them was that they wanted to see that the community sort of required it, that was, because they need to actually put it on their timeline as well.
Yeah, I think it was, there is a system, isn't there, that people can vote on Ex Libris, and I think it was on there, and I think someone has added a kind of request to that to ask them to revisit. So maybe we need to liaise with Ex Libris as well, or get the community to back that request as well.
Yes, that would be great. Like if we see it, then like from our side, we'll be positively responding to this.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, Sally, for that. Then in the chat, we've got a text from Jacqueline who says, I wonder if the idea of monitoring increase in green with the addition of it being immediate would be enough to make the case for effective policies. Any takers in the audience for that question? It's in the chat. Pablo, you've got your hand. Over to you.
Just to mention that it could be a good question for Matteo to try and reply to. So can you measure, I think Matteo is still in the call,
Yeah.
Can you measure the immediate nature of the deposit of accepted manuscripts as part of these open access dashboards that you were showing? If you're able to measure kind of immediately deposited accepted manuscripts on publication, on first online release, and identify those at AAMs and not as VORs, that could perhaps be feasible.
There are a few challenges. We could try to monitor that. One of the things that I was going to comment, I was writing while you called me in, it was that like green open access is in general growing on its own. So will we be able to recognize green open access and green open access because of IRRP? That's the biggest challenge, but maybe we could find some numbers. I think we probably have all the data to find something, try to find something about it. I think it would be something that we can explore for sure.
If I may, there was something, I don't want to change the discussion a little bit, but I wanted to mention something that I wanted to actually, I want to approach basically also maybe the UK core community with this. I was given the opportunity to represent the UK repositories sort of network and give a short presentation on what are the biggest challenges and opportunities basically in the UK at the moment for repositories at the Confederation of Open Access Repositories annual meeting, because there's no one else from the UK actually coming to that conversation, and I know that many of you here are from the UK. So if there are any particular challenges or opportunities that you feel that repositories basically need to be tackling at the moment, then I would be very pleased to sort of highlight this at that meeting. So if you are aware of something, then please speak up, and that would particularly help me. But if not, then what I will do is, of course, I will rely on the survey and how you sort of ranked your priorities and so forth.
Alternatively, if the UK community cannot think of anything at the moment, please feel free to reach out to any one of us regarding this, and we'll definitely note that conversation and sort of wrap it up for Peter and give it to him as sort of a summary. In the chat, David has miraculously fixed his Menti. So we've got 3 links that you can click on in order to assist Pablo and us with the answers for the questions that he had regarding the RRS. So we will be monitoring that as well. So please feel free to answer those while we are still in the chat. We're almost done with the meeting, and we just want to sort of get live answers for the questions that were posed around the RRS. I'm just going to open on my side just to monitor the first few responses.
We've actually got responses piling in now, so thank you very much indeed for people for taking the time to pop in and fill those in. And we can see we have a 100% success rate from everybody's responded, saying that monitoring institutional RRS policies is a good idea and it is something we should be doing. People seem less certain on the other 2 responses, so we'll give people just a minute or 2 before we wrap that up. Again, thank you, Pablo, for coming along and sharing the work you've been doing on the group with that. I don't have anything else left to ask. I don't know whether Petter wanted to give any final words or whether there is any final comments or questions from the audience.
No, I think I'm fine. I just wanted to say that, you know, I voted as well on this particular point. I think of course the advantage, as Pablo mentioned, of sort of exposing, you know, a metadata element is that it could be measured quite accurately. It could, of course, you know, realizing this might be, I think, a big issue, because we would need to make sure that all repositories follow that sort of advice, and you know, experience tells us that these things take quite a lot of time. But it could be potentially brought for discussion at the RIOX governance group, for instance, where basically we could talk and we could have a discussion about whether sort of making such element publicly available in an interoperable fashion would be something desirable. And that could be completely orthogonal to the discussion whether we decide that this is a good idea or not, for the sake of the publishers, basically.
Okay. Petter, can you just do me a favor? In the chat, the question that you asked for all the UK repositories to respond on, can you just put that in the chat so that the members can get it? Perhaps you might have spoken a little bit too fast, and it's a lot of information that the community is receiving today. So maybe let's just assist with giving that question again, so that we can get adequate responses at a later stage as well. I think if that's it, while Petter's still typing that, I'm going to hand over to David to just give the final thanks. From my side, I'd like to say thank you very much for the survey responses. It is very, very helpful to the work that we're doing at CORE, and we appreciate every single response that we've received from the community. Other than that, over to you, David.
Thank you, Mo, and thank you, Petter. And just to say a final word, if you haven't filled the survey in, we haven't closed it. It's still open. Please do drop back. And if you haven't had a link to it, let us know. If you want to talk to myself or Mo or Catherine at any point, please do just drop the team a line with any questions you may have. What we'll actually do is we'll share the results of the Menti as well, because people are still, the numbers are still changing at the moment. So I'll put that together and we'll share that with Pablo and with the group as well. Petter has just put his question there. I think, thank you very much to everybody who came along and joined us today and gave up your time. It is really important to us. So thank you, one and all. And at this time, I will stop the recording.
Thank you so much, everyone, for participating and for supporting us.
Thank you.